Hello everyone, welcome to the Adam Josh oral blog number 41, unless you include me driving around in the tundra looking at the aftermath of 100-kilometer-hour winds as the blog, but I don't, because I had nothing really to say other than checking out the damage around town. This blog is about slavery, modern day slavery, and old slavery. So not the most, let's party type blog and have fun, but one that's been on my mind and one that I want to talk about, one that I would like to put out there. So, I mean, when most people think of slavery, I mean, I don't know what you think of, but, I think of, I think of, African Americans or Africans brought over and traded. You can look up on Google Images and see pictures, or advertisements where they would put in the paper. Actually, let's do that. Black slaves sell. Yeah. To be sold on board ship of Maine cargo, about 150 fine, healthy Negroes just arrived from the Windward and Rice Croft. The utmost care has already been taken and shall be continued to keep them free from the least danger of being infected with the smallpox, no boat having been on board, and all other communication with people from Charlottetown prevented. Offlin, Lauro, and Appleby, KB, for over half the show, Negroes have had the smallpox in their country. I took a look on Wikipedia of when slavery, in different countries was abolished. Sorry, I'm listening to this Matthew Good song, and right at this part here, it reminds me of that song, all I ever wanted, all I ever needed was here in my arms. He has a few songs like that. Non-Populous is a good song, and I'm not trying to diss Mr. Good's work. It's a great song, and I know he's heavily influenced by that band, Depeche Mode. Enjoy the silence. Where were we? Sorry, I got sidetracked there. I mean, lifted pretty much note for note from non-populous, or the other way around. But I'm sure Matthew Good is aware of that. So, not like I said, Non-Popular is a great song. Don't get me wrong, and it's not bad to be influenced by another band. But that's where my mind goes. That's okay. I'm not trying to say it's bad. So slavery. So we can look in the 1500s, 1700s. 1723, Russia outright abolishes slavery but retains serfdom. 1761, 12 February, Portugal abolishes slavery in mainland Portugal and Portuguese possessions in India through a decree by Marquis of Pombal. 1777, slavery abolished in Madeira, Portugal. 1787, Sierra Leone founded by Britain as a colony for emancipated slaves. I'm thinking of that movie, Blood Diamond. That doesn't look like a town full of emancipated slaves. But 1803, Lower Canada abolishes slavery. 1814, Dutch outlaw slave trade. British pay Portugal $750,000 to cease their trade north of the equator. So this is going on and on and on and on. Mexico officially abolishes slavery in 1829. And of course the one that everybody knows is 1865, United States abolishes slavery with the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. About 40,000 remaining slaves are affected. And it goes on from there. 1885, Brazil passes sexagenarian law, freeing all slaves over the age of 60. We'll keep the younger ones. 1886, slavery abolished in Cuba. Sounds like a retirement plan. Freedom Brazil, Freedom 60. 1888, Brazil passes golden law abolishing slavery without indemnities to slave owners or aid to newly freed slaves. 1906, China formally abolishes slavery and the law became effective on 31st January 1910 when all adult slaves were converted into hired laborers and the young were freed upon reaching age 25. In 1962, Yemen abolishes slavery. 1963, United Arab Emirates abolished slavery. 1970, Oman abolishes slavery. 1981, Mauritania abolishes slavery. While now illegal everywhere, slavery or practice akin to it continue today in many countries throughout the world. And that's really what I was getting at. Is that, okay, first of all, I think pretty much everybody's aware, and if you're not, then you should be, or at least be, aware that there's sex trafficking and the people trade, which is like a modern day version of slavery. In Pakistan they have what's called chotes. Chote, pick that up for me. They're like slaves. And the flip side of slavery is, people, like I said before in a previous blog, people criticize the Torah and old, Israeli or Hebrew cultures for having slaves. And the flip side of that is, if you're born, so in like the middle of nowhere and you have nothing, and then somebody's offering you, hey, it's not like these slaves, went hungry or didn't have a place to sleep, There's the flip side of it where, well, I'll give you lodging, I'll give you food, I'll give you whatever you need, and you just work for me and live in my house and take care of my stuff for your life, or whatever they agree to. So there's that type of slavery, and that's the flip side of it. And slaves, even the old homes in Washington, that had the slave quarters in the back, I mean, they had slave quarters. So there's the flip side of slavery is that if you were a willing participant, uh, then it's more like being a lifelong butler, and butler would be a sort of slavery as well. So now, with currency getting involved, the advent of our modern day currency, instead of giving people bartering or exchanging pieces of gold or silver for work, with currency, we've made it a little bit trickier to detect to the untrained eye, but people who work for minimum wage their entire life or are stuck in one spot, are basically, you could call that slavery. I mean, there's probably some slaves that were better off when, Washington, D.C. was being built on the backs of slaves. There were probably some slaves that were better off back then than minimum wage workers right now. Maybe. But in another sense, we're all slaves of planet Earth, aside from the ones that can get off of it and go to outer space or whatever. But even then, they would probably see themselves as slaves to their body. And without the technological advancements that are kept by the few, we sort of all are a slave to our body as long as we're in it. And if you don't want to be a slave to your body as long as you're in it, then you may find yourself dead at an early age. So, slavery. When somebody hires you, on average in a North American culture, they're not thinking, I'm going to hire this person so they can better themselves, and so that one day, they can go out and branch off and make more money and do whatever they want. And that's not usually what people are thinking. Owners or managers of a company, when they hire you, are thinking, we want you to do this specific task, and if you're good at it, then do it as long as you can. And we don't want you to move left or right or up or down. We want you to do that task and do it good, because we need somebody to do that task. So that's sort of slavery. We want you to do this one job that nobody else here wants to do or can do, or we need extra help and we need you to do it, and do that. And if you do that job and thinking one day that you'll rise in the ranks, well, if there's nowhere to go in the ranks to rise to, then you're stuck where you are, and that's sort of where the owner or the manager wants you, because they need that position filled or job service done. So, there's people that work for like a restaurant, they're a cook, and they think, well, one day, I'm hungry. One day, I'm going to, do better than this and get out of here. And the owner of that business that he works for at the time may have that in the back of his mind, that maybe one day he's going to want to get out of here and do better and open his own restaurant or whatever. But as long as you're working for this person, he really wants you to just do the job that he needs to be done. So it's a sort of a duality between, if they're decent people would want to see you do good, but the other side of the duality is that they are sort of selfishly employing you because they need a service done, and as long as you can do it, whatever age you are sort of doesn't really matter. They just want that service done. So you could pine away for years if you want, and like Trent Reznor said, you might need to find happiness in slavery. So, and then we watch movies like Fast Five, or movies of similar types, where you see people who have, the classic criminal who has become fed up with, 9-to-5s, or wants a life that can't be afforded by minimum wage or medium wage, and takes matters into their own hands. And so, they go and rob cars and people and banks and are afforded that life that they wanted, but now they're criminals. So that's sort of a downer. So, you think that if you were decent with your money your entire life, or frugal and saved, that maybe one day you could, live like the TV tells you to live, or travel the world and all that. But for a lot of people, that's just not the case, especially with raising inflation costs and all that. It seems that people are stretching their money and going into debt just to survive. And then there's the whole other class of people that have learned from the criminals and monitored society for as long as there's been society. And I'm reading the scriptures right now through for the I'm in First Samuel, but I'm reading it through for the 13th or 14th time in my life, and I have to say, from an objective point of view, it's just seriously war after war, and both sides think they have God on their side. So that's sort of a downer. Our God will deliver us, and the other side says your God won't deliver us. And there's times that the Hebrew people lost wars, and they said, why has our God defeated us today before the Philistines or the Amalekites or the whateverites? And of course the other side thinks our God helped us win. So far up to 1 Samuel, aside from a cool little side stories, I'm seeing a lot of wars after wars after wars. And as I said earlier, for somebody that's not into murdering other people or killing other people for whatever sake, it's a difficult thing to realize and swallow, I suppose. So there's people, though, in governments who are okay with that, and they're sort of like the criminals or the bad guys that we see in movies, where they'll go and cause somebody else in their name, or to go to war, or just take whatever they want. There's people that just take whatever they want, and have the military means, the power, the gun power, the secret Blackwater type mercenaries that will just go take what they want, and because they want a better life, or more of the pie, or whatever. So they see that whole they see the long run of working and things staying the way they are, and they say, you know what, we want to do better, we want more. So basically, if you don't want to be a slave your entire life, people will say, you have to, it's not our fault, you agreed to this, go, nobody's holding a gun to your head. You'll hear that. It's not our fault that that you decided to work at Tim Hortons or Wendy's your entire life. Why don't you take some personal accountability and better yourself? So I guess that's the answer, that everybody should just become bank robbers and car thieves, because that won't work either, because if you're living in a city, then the police will probably arrest you and put you in jail, all paid for by your tax dollars. It's a conundrum that we live in, and we were talking about slavery. So ultimately, we're all a slave to the earth as long as we're on it, and a body to the body as long as we're in it, even if we got off the earth. But so they say that slavery was abolished in 1865, but it wasn't. We just call it other things now. I mean, if you're a slave and you're stuck in a job that you hate, or stuck in a city, or stuck working minimum wage, or stuck wherever and not free, that's sort of slavery. If you're being paid just enough to get by, that's no better than a slave that lives in the house of his master or her master and eats and drinks every day and goes to bed and sleeps. I mean, these slaves that were slaves back before 1865, you know, maybe they were ill-treated, and I'm sure they were. I'm not trying to undermine the atrocities of slavery at all. I'm just saying that a lot of times they're, you know, probably fed and people got to sleep. And I'm not saying that there's people out there that have it as bad or not as bad. I'm just making the point that slavery still exists in literal form, like in the sex trafficking and the human trafficking. You know, the white collar, white shoe boys some of them like to have sex with little boys or little girls. People in government seem to have a particular fancy for that. So some people take trips to Malaysia. You know, that's a whole other topic, but slavery still exists. There's people who sell themselves on the street corners for money. There's people who are addicted to drugs their entire life. That's pretty much slavery. There's people that work dead-end jobs, full well knowing that they're dead-end jobs. I mean, you can't expect anybody that works at like a grocery store bagging groceries to think that this is going to advance their career to rocket scientist. They sort of have to know that this is it. And looking next to you and seeing somebody that has done that for their entire life, and then you being younger having to realize that you could literally do this your entire life. Again, so either you find happiness in your slavery, or start building a battleship and go to war with somebody and take their stuff. I don't know. It's a weird situation that we're born into, you know. We're all born into this planet, and smarter people than you and I have amassed great amounts of wealth and technology and firepower, and have established themselves before you and I were born, and will continue to establish themselves unless they're rivaled. And an independent person like me, or people that are like me, aren't much of a rival to people with unlimited firepower and wealth via the central banking system, Federal Reserve, private cartel, scientific technopoly, private oligarch family of the Windsor, Sachs, Gotha, Coburg, maybe not Coburg, Windsor, Sachs, Gotha, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Kissingers. You know, these are families that have amassed great amounts of wealth, firepower, military means, land. As I've said ad nauseum before, the Queen owns Canada, British colonies, New Zealand, Australia. Look up whoownstheworld.com and you can see a better picture of the way things really are. There's people who have mineral rights on the moon, and all these people, you know, have will continue on their empires after you and I have served out our days, you know, working minimum wage, and have gone to the grave. And that's the way they want it, you know. So basically, in the end, the Queen sees everybody as her slaves, you know. If you pay taxes and you have the Queen on your money, then you're her slave. I'm sure that's how she sees it. You know, this Prince Philip guy, you know, if you listen to the things he says. Slavery still exists. We call it something different. But that's the trick of language, you know. This is a bottle of iced tea, but it's also a bottle of cold fluid. And it's also a bottle of thé glacé. It's also a bottle of juice. It's a lot of different things. And now it's empty. So you can call slavery serfdom. You can call slavery minimum wage. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it still is what it always was. So in Pakistan, labor is so cheap that people are fine with being chotes. They'll have a guy to cook your dinner, a guy to drive you around, and if you're moderately well off, you can afford to pay all these people, and they'll gladly work for you because otherwise they wouldn't have much of anything. And in India, you have the caste system, so pretty much a glaring example of we're better than you, and you're down here, and we're up here. So it seems to me that we're all slaves of some sort, whether of the body or of the earth, or to our diet, or to our stomach, or to our desires, to our dreams, to our inner urgings, or to those around us. We're all slaves of some sort. So either we find happiness in slavery or we rebel against it. AJOB 41. Tell your friends to get a job.